Welcome to Moss Marketing Mondays, aka the M3 Podcast. Brought to you by Moss Marketing Group, bringing you everything marketing every Monday. Stay tuned for marketing tips and tricks you can use today. The M3 Podcast, marketing knowledge to help you succeed. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the M3 Podcast. Today on set, myself, Dre, Ricky, and good friend of mine, Todd Gentry. Todd Gentry is the GSM up at Gary Crossley Ford. Thank you very much for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Ricky, introduction.
I'm here on the podcast. Normally I'm on the other side running the board, but now I'm actually in the hot seat.
I know, now they get the key Ricky at the end. They get to see Ricky now.
Yeah.
So,
He's
Todd,
handsome.
thank you. Thank you for coming on today. And so you're local here in Liberty. You live in Kearney, and you've worked at Gary Crossley Ford for how long?
11 years.
A long time.
Yeah.
Worked your way all the way up the ladder.
Yes. I'm not there yet. We're still working on it, though.
You're driving in the right direction.
Yeah.
So we normally start off the podcast with whoever's here kind of giving that story and that background of what's led them here to date. And what is your journey through the car business before the car business? I think that's something, as us being friends, I don't even know what you did before the car business.
Yeah.
So what's led all the way up to that?
Well, I was just a farm kid, and I had a passion for cars, always liked cars. Had a good friend, Jonathan, and, every time he was my buddy that came over all the time, and we'd be driving the city to see a movie and get dinner or whatever with my parents. He'd be like, oh, that's this car, that's this car, that's this car. And I was like, I had it. I thought I had it, but I was 2 years off. And so, you always kind of have somebody in your life that challenges you. And I think he was that guy early on in the car business that kind of challenged me. I was like, man, I really want to know what he knows. And so I just really got into it. I started wanting to know what different cars were. Of course, I was born and raised Ford. Both sides of the family, both grandparents, they were Ford people. And so anyways, I farm kid, worked on the railroad. I went to auto collision school in high school at Chillicothe at the Grand River Technical School for body work, and kind of got away from that, went into the railroad. Money was a little better, a little more of a guarantee. Got to do some traveling at a young age. So I did that for a while. Then I went to work for another railroad company in Kansas City, and I was home a lot more often. So, I had a lot more of those guys influencing me that I'd went to auto collision school and high school with, like Chad and Jonathan and those guys. So I did that, and next thing I know, I was working at a body shop, and I had some free time, and I was like, well, hell, I'm just going to start painting on the side and, doing some body work here and there. And so I got some people that started coming to me, just relationships my family had and I had, and I was buying cars at Gary Crossley Ford. I went down there one day. I was probably the fourth car I'd bought in a couple of years, and they were like, dude, you just need to come sell cars. Like, you know more than we do. And so I ended up applying, and Deborah Pelton works at the dealership. We were at a get-together with my parents one night. She was like, you need to come sell cars. I was like, well, I applied a couple of weeks ago. And she's like, really? Well, the next day I get a phone call, and I thought kind of at the beginning I could just do it for 30, 40 hours a week and keep doing the body work, but come to find out,
Took a lot more hours.
it takes a little more than 40 hours a week to sell cars. So the rest is kind of history, man. I just got hooked after my first month. I just really, really enjoyed it, talking to different people, and there's all these different people from all different walks of life that buy cars, and it kind of became intriguing to me, the relationships and the stories you hear. So that's what got me here.
And I think that's where our paths crossed.
Yeah.
In the car business, and I had a very high level of respect for you of what you've done in the car business and the customer side that you have with it, that you've done a phenomenal job with. People that come to you always come back to you, and you have that loyalty from customers and that success in the car business, I think, from that. And it's been really cool watching. We've watched probably the last, I'm trying to think of how many years we've been friends now.
Yeah. I mean, probably pretty easy 6.
Every bit of 6.
Yeah, I mean, maybe probably a little more than that.
Yeah. And
6, we've been close.
Yeah.
You know, not just, hey, you know, I need you to help on this one or whatever. But, yeah, 6 years, I feel like we've been close friends for 6 years.
It's one of those things that anytime we had customers that were dealership to dealership, when they went up to see you, there was never a bad thing that was said. And I think that's kind of something rare to find in the car business as a whole.
I think especially the car business.
And I think a lot of times it has a bad stigma that everyone's bad.
Yeah.
And that is not the case. You're going to find some of the best people you know out there in the car business also. You're going to find bad people, but you're also going to find really good people.
Yeah.
And I think those are the people that excel the most, though.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't know, watching you come up every bit of 6+ years, whatever that timeline looks like. But, then, in a crazy way, our paths have came back to crossing again.
Yeah.
The content creation, things like that, with the marketing side is something that Ricky helps a ton with. I mean, he does like most all of it now.
Yeah, so Dana and I shoot most of the videos, and then I edit a lot of them and things like that. But on that content side of things, obviously we see the importance of it. It's what we deal with every day. But as a GSM in your space, what kind of value have you seen from the content creation side?
Well, you know, and I think that's where Dana and I kind of started to kind of click a little bit, is with the content side, you know, and clearly what you're great at, Ricky. The thing to me that's interesting about the content side is I want to get somebody's attention, right? Because not everybody knows that I'm a great person. Not everybody knows that we're a great dealership, and not everybody knows that we have a great team. But when something seems exciting, right, they're intrigued, and they're at least going to call in and give us the chance. And I think once we get that chance, that's all we need, right? And so with the content side, the reason that I believe in the Moss marketing way is because it's exciting, right? It's cool. It's neat. You don't have to focus all of your attention on that video, right? Because you guys are going to get that person right out of the gate without having to hear somebody talk about how great they are, without having to see a face of how great that guy feels that he is, or whatever it is. You're seeing what you're there for.
Yeah.
Right? You're there to look at a cool car of a video. Whether you're looking to buy it or not, there's a very strong chance that the other 100 cars, 200 right now anyways, the other 100 to 200 cars usually is 500 or 600, right, that I've got in stock. You're going to at least click on that, and you're going to say, all right, well, that's the place I want to buy a car because it's cool. And that's what starts it, right? That's step one. And so the content side, Ricky, to answer your question, that's it. It's just getting someone to be engaged without having to put a lot of effort into it, right? Clicking through, submitting a form, whatever it is. It's just like, hey, this is a really cool video. It's nice, it's crisp, it's clean, it's professional. Like, these guys know what they're doing. And then it starts from there. I
think that leads a lot into just opportunities. Not to say this in a negative way, but I feel like a lot of dealers put somebody out there talking all the time about how great they are.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just like the perception is everyone like, hey, I'm going to put video out and just tell everyone how great I am.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, you know, nothing in life matters until you do it.
Exactly. And
it just doesn't.
When we speak with business owners, things like that, our sales process and everything looks completely different than everyone else. I don't sit down and be like, hey, yeah, we're the greatest marketing company ever. Like, and it's exact same way with what you're doing. It's like, let these people tell you what we've done. Let that person tell you what we've done. We've helped that person. We've helped that person. We've helped that person. We've helped that company, that company, that company. Look at their results. It speaks for itself. And but they're getting opportunities. The more opportunities you get, the better you do. And you just want those opportunities of somebody just to give you a chance. Mm-hmm. I think that's where the video is winning so much in that space and the content and things like that.
And the other thing about the video is there are so many dealerships that do like the stereotypical TV commercial that you see and you've seen grown up for decades, right? And everybody has already seen that and they just kind of ignore it. It's not anything new. When you have more of a cinematic video that catches people's attention, you can almost see it as entertainment, but then at the same time they see, oh, that's at Gary Crossley. When I need a car, maybe I should check them out.
Yeah.
And then maybe I should check in
exactly
next
right.
week. Maybe they're putting another one out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're exactly right, Ricky. 100%.
That's him just cracking those all podcasts.
Yeah, why not?
We just do a little montage. Just
I think we definitely need to add that to the soundboard so we can just hit the button.
Yeah, just so I don't have to
time.
say it every time.
Yeah, kind of like the air horn.
Exactly.
Got Dre's bush light.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But speaking on the content side and everything like that, we've started rolling out a lot of videos for Gary Crossley Ford, things like that, and seeing huge results on them. And it also very much helps your guys' inventory.
Yeah.
I'll say it's 50-50 on that. When Ricky's like, oh, what are we filming this week? And we got to film a new Roush truck, the first one that hits Kansas City.
Yeah.
That's really cool when those things are hitting. We're out filming it. People are pulling up to us and they're like, what is that? And like, Ricky's like,
It actually happens quite a bit.
Really, that's
but
cool.
it's just funny that how that happens when you're out with those vehicles and things like that.
It definitely does makes it a lot easier to film a cool video when it's on a cool car.
Yeah.
Like I just sold it today, so it's kind of heavy on my heart. But I had 92 Ford Ranger, pretty
Heavy on his
rusted
heart.
out, pretty heavy on my heart, completely rusted out. And I filmed like what ended up being kind of a cool cinematic video of it, just kind of for laughs.
Yeah.
And it was fun and everything, but on a lot of the stuff that we do for you guys, there's no bad angles
Mm-hmm.
because it's just a good looking ride.
It definitely makes our job easier.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're trying to do, man. We're trying to provide the cool stuff. You know, who doesn't like cool stuff? No, everybody does.
The other thing, though,
you
is
know?
you're going after a market, and I've talked to people that work with you in the same organization,
Mm-hmm.
that there's no one that's taken that kind of that crown here.
Yeah.
They've done it all over the country, but in the Midwest, that crown's still there for the taking.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody just has to go up and take it.
We're taking it.
And that's where it's like, I feel like you guys are like right there, that it's like ordering high volume of those units because you already know they're going to sell. You're doing the content right on them. You're doing all these things that are supposed to be done. And we were talking about this before we even started, about doing things that you were doing pre-COVID all the way through and doing it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you have this like custom market and doing the right things with the marketing, even though it doesn't, a lot of dealers are looking at like it doesn't have to be done right now.
Yeah.
Like, well, we're selling just so many cars. Like, I'm not going to mess with this. I'm going
Right.
to save the money.
That's an important point. It
But
is.
guess what? That market comes down. You guys are trending this way, and that market drops off. People don't realize the market has dropped until after it's dropped.
Right.
So if you're already heading this direction and the market goes this way and you guys are still going up, and you're doing the video, you're doing all these other things that you're supposed to be doing anyways,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? You just missed that drop.
Yeah.
You're on the upside of it.
Yeah.
And I think that you keep doing what you're doing with these Crossley customs. They're done very tastefully. You have a great customs guy in there. I know you guys work together very well.
We do.
You have all these ordered trucks that are coming in, and I think you're just going to take that crown of that person that's going to own that market.
Yeah.
And it's a great market to own.
Mm-hmm. And it's fun.
It is.
You know what I mean?
Very fun. I very
know,
much enjoy that.
I think that's where a lot of dealers get caught up, man. It's just, oh, we got to sell a car. All right, we got to get a survey. We got to make sure the back end's there. Make sure they don't cancel that. You know, all this other crazy stuff. It's like, hey, you need to have a little fun with it.
Yeah.
I get it. I really do. It's expensive. Everything's expensive.
Yeah.
But if you're so concerned about the cost, you're not too concerned about the future. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I think when you get that clientele becomes completely different.
Very different.
And I mean, we lived for the guys coming in camo hoodies, cowboy boots, everything. They were 800 credit score, and they're like, "Hey, we need 10 grand." I'm like, "Oh, no problem."
yeah.
And it was just like that became that market of this like truck market that was just such phenomenal buyers. Those were the people we were friends with,
Yeah.
and that's what I enjoyed about the car business. I think you pull a lot of that exact same clientele.
Similar, yes, very similar.
And you have those people that come in that I think become friends.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, hey, if you're ever selling this vehicle, I want first shot at it.
Right.
Because what you're driving, I want back at some point.
Right.
I would always love to sell that again.
Yeah.
I remember the good Rhino lined F-250.
Yes, sir.
R.I.P. That was my favorite.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind owning that right now. The thing
Yeah,
is
hell,
sick.
it runs around Liberty somewhere.
Yep.
Cole Mills had it the first time, and then TDR got it back, and then I don't know where it went the second time.
Yeah.
R.I.P. That's a good truck.
Yeah.
I should have bought that one. I'd still be driving it to date.
So we know you guys were pacing upwards, or you guys have always been pacing upwards, let's be honest. Going into COVID, I know it affected a lot of dealerships in general. We've seen dealerships shut down.
Yeah.
Was that something that severely affected you guys in a positive or negative way? And how did you guys basically tackle that? I know he touched on COVID a minute ago. I've been sitting over here thinking, I'm like, I feel.
That was my
Easy,
Apple Watch
bud.
picked us up.
Yeah.
I was like, what is that?
I'll bet an Android wouldn't have done that.
Android wouldn't have
Yeah.
done that.
Fair point.
Just so
saying.
everyone watching knows that Todd uses Android.
Our office
Yeah.
is completely full of Apple products,
Yeah.
and he needed to charge his phone, so we had to kind of search around to find something that was going to charge it.
Yeah.
We got the job done.
Yeah.
Took care of
Did,
it.
absolutely. Very,
Yeah.
servant mentality for sure. Yeah.
That's what we're here to do.
Ricky was over there soldering wires to make sure that Android charger could convert
Building
over.
one in the corner.
I'm pretty sure it'll be fine though.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
I
sure.
don't think it actually works, but
No
it
big
plugs
deal.
in.
Yeah. It
It
charged in
fits.
like 2 seconds, so who knows, right? No big deal. So COVID, right? What is COVID, by the way, right? Does anybody really know?
It's actually gone.
Yeah.
gone.
Who knows about it? All right. So COVID, obviously it affected us. We furloughed a decent amount of our employees until we realized that it wasn't as big of a deal as what everybody thought it would be. And we had certain guidelines that we had to obviously follow with not only the county, but, all these different things we had to do. But COVID really, in my opinion, it affected us in a very positive way because it gave us a chance to realize how important people are to us. And, our culture's always been a big thing at the dealership. And that's one of those times when you're sitting there and you're having to make a decision that changes not only your employees' life, but their families. And it's kind of, it was breathtaking, honestly, to be sitting at the conference room, and I'm kind of fortunate that I was in the position that I'm in now at that time because I got to realize the kind of leaders that I work with every day. Because we're sitting around the conference table with all the department heads and everything else. And I mean, there's tears being shed over, what the future might hold at that point. And so we made the decision to furlough some people, a good majority of the whole dealership for about 30 days. And after 30 days went through, we're like, hey, we've got, because of our culture and because of how well everyone works together, we had people that were furloughed that were still calling in with different ways to solve different problems. And so, Todd and Terry had made the decision, it didn't even take 30 days, but they were like, hey, we got to bring everybody back. Yeah, it's going to be a dip and it's going to hurt a little bit, but we've got all of these people. You take everyone from a porter, somebody detailing cars, all the way up to a finance manager that was just willing to step in and help even when they weren't working. And it was crazy, absolutely insane. And just the culture at that dealership is second to none. And honest to God, don't think that you could find it anywhere else. And so I was very grateful for those times. And it became personal for me. It's always been personal for me, but I didn't really understand how personal it was until you're called out, right? By the grace of God or whatever it is, you're called out to step up to provide for all these people because my main goal was to get all those people back to work. So I had to figure out how to make the most net profit to bring those people back to work to afford the payroll and everything else. And they had that same thing in mind. But I was just one of the guys still at work, right? And so it's not just everybody in that store pulled together. We were able to bring everybody back. Nobody lost their job. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. So COVID was a big learning experience, but it was it was a pendulum swing for our dealership. Not only to where we're at now, but we found because we were so strong together during COVID, last month we were the number one dealership in the region. Not for the year, but for the month, right? Just to be 100% transparent. I'm not saying that's where we're at, but for the month, we finished out number one in the state, number one in the region, number one in the state. It was just crazy, right? It was absolutely insane. And we did that because of the work that we put in during COVID, with the different guidelines that Ford required you to stand by because they had the same issue, right? So they weren't going to be able to produce as many vehicles. So they required you to verify every order. Well, we read the email from Ford, and we're like, hey, let's just verify every order. Let's just do it. That way we don't have to do it later. And we did it, and that's why we were number one last month, is because all of that stuff's now starting to play off, because we got ourselves in that mentality. Hey, every order that comes in, these are the 4 or 5 things that we need. Let's just get them every time. That way, in case Ford calls for them, we can send them over the PDF, and we're good to go. And so worked out really well.
That's, I think, crazy how when you see those big, huge objections come and how people overcome them is really what separates people. And I think a lot of people watching probably very much, we deal with a lot of automotive dealerships, things like that, so we understand that space. I think a lot of people probably watching and listening probably don't understand what's happening in the car market as a whole right now. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what has caused this shortage of everything that I think so many people are frustrated with? Let me take that back. I would say a large portion of people are frustrated with. And then there's a portion that understand that it's like, hey, there's a shortage of lumber, there's a shortage of gas, there's a shortage of everything, but I expect my vehicle to be here in a week.
Yeah.
So what has caused this new car shortage that they show up off the truck and they're sold before they ever leave the truck? It's such a different world today than 24 months ago.
Yeah.
So what's that whole thing look like?
Put you on the spot.
That's an hour podcast by itself.
Let's see. It's
Do we have this done in the next 3 hours?
Yeah, who knows, right? Well, I mean, there's so many different sides of it. You know, there's political sides of it and everything else. But, you know, the simple answer is we should be providing for ourselves in the United States of America. But that's besides the point, right? You know, I think inventory turn has been a big thing. You know, Dane, back when you and I were managing used cars, and I would, you know, consider us we were managing used cars together, right? We were focused on our turn, you know, because we didn't want to have to worry about a downturn or an upturn in the market, primarily a downturn, right? So, you know, so we were trying to turn our inventory every 30 days, and that was extremely important to us. Where you had the used cars, right? I had used cars, and I was the used car manager at the time, but I was also looking at the new cars, and I'm like, man, we could be doing so much more in new cars, and I just could never get any traction with the new cars at our store. And I think that ultimately that's what's made our dealership so successful, is because I already had that state of mind from used cars to new cars. So when you look at the market, you want to turn, right? So when you look at it, there's a lot of different things that you look at, which is, you know, how much interest you're paying on that inventory sitting on your lot per day.
So I think when people are watching that, I've spoke with people, and a lot of times I speak like car terminology, like they understand what I'm saying, and they look at me and they're like really confused looking. I'm like, you don't understand what I'm saying. And the fact that car dealers floor plan cars. So it's just like if I went to the bank, I took out a loan for X amount of dollars to buy this vehicle, a dealer's doing the same thing. Yeah. And then they're paying interest on that vehicle for the time that it sits on the lot. Yeah. So once again, going right back into it, that a dealer's paying interest on that vehicle because they're floor planning it. Right. So there is money that a dealer is paying all the time for every single vehicle that sits on their lot all the time. And I think a lot of people don't understand that number and where a lot of dealership numbers come from. Right. Well, I mean, you some dealers pay cash, right? So you can call I would say that's a smaller number than most people. Yeah, some dealers pay cash. Understand. You know, we've done that. We've done the floor plan. We've went back and forth to try to figure out what gives us the best ROI. But look at it like the cookies you bought me today. Those are good cookies.
Crumble cookies, plug them. Maybe we'll get sponsored.
You know, those are really nice cookies, very well put together. They taste great. You know, they're soft and everything. Everything's awesome about them. You know, you probably paid a premium for that cookie today.
Oh, 100%.
You know,
but that's because it's your birthday.
Yeah, that's right.
We're going to have to shout out to his birthday on that one.
If you go into that cookie store tomorrow, you can buy that same box for half the price.
No, they make them fresh every day, actually.
Well, what do they do with the ones they left over?
They make them per order. That's why they're so expensive.
Well, I guess that's a bad analogy. All right, well, let's just take it.
I hate making
so we'll use the Viato. Right, yep. Viato is a tool that we use to manage our inventory, and a lot of dealerships, it's a big deal. It's a big deal, right?
I'd say probably 85-90% dealers use it.
Probably. You know, there's a lot of other good ones out there like VinQ, and there's Max Digital. I think Max Digital is the other one. But anyways, so we're a V Auto dealer, but what they use, the analogy is a banana, right? So if you go to the farmer's market in the morning and you look at all this fresh fruit, and this guy's got bananas for $1, this guy's got bananas for $1, they were both picked this morning, right? Well, this guy sells out at $1, or let's just say he's 95 cents. He beats you by 5 cents, right? So everybody goes to his little tent and buys all those bananas up. Well, this guy's $1 still, so at the end of the day, his bananas aren't quite as fresh, so he's got to cut the price. Would he have been better off to keep them at $1 and sell less? Or would he have been better off to compete at the 95 cents and sell all his? Because now he's selling them for 80 cents as, 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the night rolls on, right? And he's got all these bananas sitting here. It's the same thing with a car. If you leave a car sitting on the lot too long, it's going to get flat spots on the tires, right? You're going to have more people test driving that vehicle, so it's going to have scratches, dings, dents. It's going to be dirty from their feet getting in the floorboard. It's been on the market longer. More people have clicked on it on Auto Trader, Cars.com, all of those different third-party tools, and you can see whenever you look for a car, you can see, wow, it's had this many clicks. It's had this many people love it. It had this many people save it, whatever platform you're on. Well, if that number gets too high, it's not always a great thing, because that number might be so high that if Dane goes and looks at that 2020 Duramax, he's like, well, shit, man. 200 people have clicked on that thing and nobody's bought it yet.
What's wrong with it?
What's wrong with that? Well, I'm going to go to this one over here. It just hit the market today. It's $4,000 higher. It's had 3 people save it, but I'm going to call the dealership and see what it's about. And they don't even call them the one that's been on the market for 45 days because it's had so many clicks and views and saves and everything else. And he's like, well, hell, there has to be something wrong with that truck, because there's a reason no one's bought it yet. Like, it's a great deal. It performs well. All of this other stuff. It looks great. So it doesn't matter at the end of the day. I'm not going to go buy something that everybody else has used or touched or whatever it is. And so the market becomes stale.
Yeah.
And then that's when that turn becomes very important. We try to focus on the 2-week sale rate, right? So if you've got 80 cars in stock and you sell all 80 of them in the first 2 weeks, you're on pace for a 160 car month pretty easy, as long as you know what you're doing,
Which that almost like rewinds us all the way back to the content side, which I speak with a lot of dealers about this, so you talk about Auto Trader, Cars Guru, Cars.com, True Car. I mean, how many of those websites are out there that you probably pay for a month?
One.
Okay, you might pay.
I'm an exception to the rule, though.
Exception to the rule.
I am 100% an exception to the rule.
Most dealers pay for all these platforms.
Yeah.
So if you take 100 people in market, we go grab 100 people off the street. Out of those 100 people, how many of them do you think are on those shopping platforms looking for vehicles? They all give you a number when you come in, and they all sit within 5%.
5%.
No, they sit within 5% of what they're telling you.
Okay.
So I wrote all these numbers down all the time when they would come in.
Well, you're not going to ask that question unless you know the answer.
So it's normally it's 30 to 35%.
Really?
Is it what they're talking about is active buyers?
Yeah.
That are actively on Cars Guru, Auto Trader, all these different websites.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying out of 100 people we go grab off the street, 30 to 35% of them are always actively searching for a new vehicle.
Yeah.
So with what we have done with social and the content side is I don't care about that 30 to 35% realistically. With the cool inventory and the stuff that you guys have and the stuff that with the content side is we want to go after that 70% that doesn't know they want it yet.
Yeah. That's what I want too.
Exactly. I don't know.
So you know.
I don't know that I want it. I'm not actively looking for a vehicle right now.
Yeah.
But somebody puts something cool enough in front of me, I'll go buy it tomorrow.
Well, you just text me yesterday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You post something yesterday. I'm like, hey, what's up? What are the details on this? Like,
and I knew it, man, before I even put it up.
But it's funny on when you're like watching that stuff.
Yeah.
Is you want to shop. A dealership wants to go target the out of market shoppers actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's became such a misconception of targeting the same 30 to 35% that every other dealership on the planet is trying to target.
Yeah.
That everyone is paying. I don't think the general public knows what dealers actually pay for Cars Guru, Auto Trader, and all these different platforms.
It's a lot.
A lot.
Which is why we don't do it. And you know what? I don't want any enemies. I really don't. But all that stuff's a waste of money. And
100%.
I hate to say that, you know what, I really do, because we've got a lot of good reps that have came in, they call on us, they stay in touch, they're super sharp, they know what they're talking about. you know, they understand the data, the analytics, they understand all of it. And, you know, so again, I don't want any enemies and I don't want to talk bad about people, but 100%
I'm not saying it's a bad way.
Yeah.
But most of the time, you touched on it. They come in and all they're pushing you is analytics.
Mm-hmm. And that's the problem because
it's not car sales.
It's garbage in, garbage out. That's exactly what analytics is.
We worked with a company that wasn't even from around here. They're out of Denver, Colorado. We worked with them for a while when we were at the dealership, and they send us these numbers that were just astronomical, like craziest numbers I've ever seen. Like, you were saw by like 4.4 million people this month.
Cool.
I'm like, we did not sell a single car more than we did last month. I'm like, where did these 4.4 million people that were they in Thailand? Like, where were they? Where were they at? Like, I don't know where these people are. I don't know. I don't really care about the view side. You care about moving inventory.
I do.
When we work with any company that we work with, it's correlated to moving whatever it is. And I think a lot of these companies have got so focused on analytics that they don't actually care about what you are caring about doing.
Yeah.
So I just think that that's very funny that, rewinding all the way back, that vehicle that you want to move in 15, 30 days.
Yeah.
I'm not saying all stuff, like all inventory, but the specialized stuff is much easier to move to the person that doesn't know they want it yet.
Yeah. Well, it's much easier to get engagement.
Yes.
Which is what it's all about. I get it that everybody looked at that Roush truck you guys shot last week. They're not going to spend $85,000 on a truck. I understand that, and I don't expect them to.
I was halfway thinking about when we were out driving. I'm like, this thing's legit. I'm like,
yeah, you came back. You're like, what about the Raptors?
Yeah.
You know?
I'm like, my wheels were turning when we were out filming. I'm like, this thing's really cool. I'm like, this is very well, like, it was just a legit truck.
Yeah, it's very clean, very well put together. Yeah,
not
the Roush does a great job.
Like,
Yep.
It's because you went on a test drive in it.
Pretty much.
That's what it was.
too.
He could have ordered something new, but he went actually test drove the vehicle like we're talking about earlier. Actually pretty good.
Yeah. You know, great job on that video, by the way. The exhaust is probably the coolest thing.
I do not want any credit for that. That was Ricky, so make sure I don't have any
Ricky,
credit for
great job.
It was a team effort.
You're terrible.
I'm pretty bad.
The
I will never take credit for something I didn't do.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, Ricky, that was cool with the exhaust. You know how you that was just very cool. You know, I show him my dad, and he's like, "Oh, that's cool." It's like, all right, well, you know, maybe I should show someone else.
Was expecting a lot more enthusiasm out of that.
So, no, that was super cool. I love the exhaust and, you know, just, again, the bad angles, right? It's tough to get a bad angle. But for some reason, anytime I go out to shoot or just take some pictures, throw them on my page, it's like, man, this is horrible.
Oh, I mean, you definitely can get a bad angle.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Well, just look at my TRX post. It's terrible. You'd be like, well, you know, we know it's there, I guess.
Yeah.
But other than that.
But that goes, like, right back to what we were talking about when it comes to that truck. Like, when I texted you about it yesterday, that truck, I text you, I'm like, that truck sells no matter what.
Yeah. It did, too.
In less than 7 days.
Yeah.
And most dealers are relying on that just easy sell.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about how dealers aren't having to do sales training anymore. That is something that, like, we have 30 plus dealers we work with. And I don't remember last time I walked into a dealership, they're like, yeah, we do sales training 5 days a week. They're like, there's sales training that's not being done. There's marketing that they're like, hey, we can run a lot leaner. We don't have to pay for all this marketing stuff. And that's, once again, when this dip comes,
they're
going to be like, who can I call to try to market our stuff? Does somebody train sales people? We need to do something.
Yeah.
But it's going to shift a lot more that we're just very much, I don't know, I've always been the person that, like, you run a level, like a standard of what you're going to do.
Yeah.
In the good, the bad, whatever it is, you're still running that same standard.
Mm-hmm.
I think with how the car market is, it's just been funky. And do you think it'll come back? Do you think even in the next 2, 3, 4 years that things will be normal again? Or you think we're in a new norm where you don't do sales training? You don't do stuff like that, and people just come in and they just sell you their cars.
No.
And they just buy cars from you, and they're just like, hey, I'll take it today. Because we all know last year that's how it was. That people come in, they're like, you have something I can buy?
Right.
They're like, yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, That's kind of two questions in one, really. Will there be the new norm, right? Or will it come back to normal? Well, normal is selling what? What would you call normal? Selling 70% of your inventory, 50?
Go back to
there was a day when like we were chasing 45-day turns and like 60 was like, hey, you know what? If you're running under a 60-day turn, you guys are killing it.
Yeah.
And now it's like you're walking in the dealership like, yeah, I'm running like a 18-day turn.
Yeah. 18 days is a lot right now too.
Right now it's like, oh my God, you're not doing real well, are you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our new car turn right now is, well, as of Tuesday when we had internet still.
Who needs internet?
Yeah, no big deal. It was like 7 days.
Yeah.
So and that, there's a lot that goes into that 7 days, because 7 days is when the manufacturer recognizes it's on our lot. Well, you got to get it PDI'd, and service is crazy right now. So sometimes you might wait 24 hours to get a car PDI'd, and then you've got
PDI is what? Just so
pre-delivery inspection.
Okay.
So making sure the lug nuts are tight, the car's taken out of transport mode and all that stuff. So you've got that goes into it. That customer, obviously people have been waiting for months to get their cars, so they might have vacations or whatever else that they're on. We had 3 cars today that showed up on a truck. It's like, all right, well, he'll be here Monday, he'll be here Wednesday, he'll be here Thursday. It's like, well, shit, guys, I need them here now because I want the turn. Because now, ironically, the OEMs are paying attention to the turn. It's like, when the hell have they ever paid attention to the turn? You know what I mean?
No, they're just kicking them out as fast as
We've been paying attention to the turn since back when Dane and I were doing used cars. The turn was the most important part of our job.
Yeah.
And now, all of a sudden, new car dealers get it. Our new car OEMs get it. And so that's been really cool to see, because it's like, yeah, well, absolutely.
Welcome to our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're talking to these Ford execs and stuff, and they're like, well, now the turn and this and that. And it's like, yeah.
Are you new to this?
Yeah,
Welcome.
yeah.
Welcome to the room.
You want to say that, but obviously it's I get it, right? They're a product of their atmosphere, and they just weren't consumed with that before. They were consumed about getting the vehicle produced and getting it to the dealership, because at that point they're done.
Yeah.
Right? They've sold it to the dealer. The dealer's paying the floor plan, and they've kind of washed their hands of it. But sales training, absolutely. I mean, everything changes, right? Nothing stays the same, unfortunately. So you always got to be training on it. Do we do a good job of it? Absolutely not. We could do a much better job. We do decent, right? But we track our calls. We listen to them every once in a while to give the guys kudos and show them what they could build on. Because a lot of right now we're getting calls on all the stuff that everybody wants. Yeah. And we can't get it, right? So we've got Mavericks. If people call, hey, I want one of those Ford Mavericks. Well, did you reserve one back when Ford announced it, right? No, I didn't. Okay. Right? Broncos, can't produce enough of those things. F-250s, 350s, 450s, 550s, can't produce enough of them. Transits, can't produce enough of them, right? And that's what most of our calls coming in the dealership are, so you have to train your dealership to handle those calls. So if dealerships aren't continually training right now, it's unfortunate.
That's something even in the marketing space.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that we do, like I think it can attest to our whole company now, is how much I focus still on sales. It doesn't matter what you're doing. I think that was the most crucial thing I've ever learned from going to college and getting a degree that I think I pay $141 a month for a degree that sits somewhere.
It's deferred.
Yeah. Sitting somewhere on a wall somewhere around here that is not used whatsoever in what we do.
Yeah.
But the sales side that my dad was so anal about, him and Dre and I both doing sales training all the time. I have probably like 4 years of sales training under my belt. That did I want to do at the time? Absolutely not. But now I look back on it, I was like, that was probably like one of the best things I've ever done.
He'll still send me sales training things at 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, bro, I'm trying to go to sleep. He's like, you could do this. I'm like,
I'm sitting in bed like watching this stuff. I'm like, how can we be better?
I'm like, I'm trying to fall asleep. I'm not trying to do sales training right now. I'm like, time and place, not while I'm in bed.
It's like every single day I look at how us as a company can do better. If that's with sales training, anything like that. And someone's always being sold at some point in time.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of times just understanding people, things like that, and the verbiage of everything. And I think the car business has kind of lost it, I feel like, in this COVID era.
They absolutely have.
That we were talking before, you're like, I have people that, like, they come in, they're like, oh, you just don't, you want to buy that right there. If you're not wanting to buy that right there, then see ya.
Yeah.
It's going to sell in 7 days anyways.
Yeah. Oh, we've had salespeople, literally, customer will call in after they left and be like, well, he told me if I didn't want it, somebody else would take it.
Yeah. That.
What do you even say?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
It's not
wrong.
Yeah, but you can't say that, right?
Yeah, so it's.
So I'm sitting there thinking, well, he's 100% true. However, I need to train him. I need to train him a little bit better on how to take that.
how to execute that.
Yeah.
But the car business. So you would say that we've talked a lot about the new car side.
Mm-hmm.
You and I would. That's
You
a little
got
broad.
Yeah.
Because now he's in charge of both. I come from just the used side.
Yeah.
You and I work together on the used side.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say the used side of the market is looking like nowadays?
I think you got a lot of skeptical people looking at buying cars. Because the thing about it is the market's kind of all over the place, and I think that's where the market's going to take the turn, is with used cars. Everyone's been paying this premium for so long because they're so scared of getting it, and unfortunately, that's just I don't think it's going to last long. But I think what's going to stimulate that market for a little while is going to be the dealers that have been paying $4,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 over MSRP for a car with 20,000 miles on it, just because it's hard to get. They're basing things off of the day supply, and that's where that V Auto model's changed, in my opinion, a little bit, is because, how many times have you got a vendor come in that's selling you something, a vehicle, and they say, well, MMR is this. Well, that's Manheim. MMR is the auction, right? And none of us on this couch are in the wholesale market. We're not.
I still get I have 7 enterprise reps that email me every single morning that I get all this list, and this one's $200 under MMR.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
I want to unsubscribe to all these
So
emails every morning.
The cool thing about MMR is it's cool. It's not a good thing.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about MMR is that number stays where that number is, because it's based off of transactions, right? So that means a transaction is when someone writes a check and someone cashes a check. What happens if the transactions aren't happening, right? If what they would call a no sale. Well, guess what? MMR stays the same.
Yeah.
Right. So when you've got these dealers, and it's fortunate for me, it's unfortunate for the people that have based their decisions off of an exit strategy only, and that exit strategy being wholesale. My exit strategy is retail. All right. So I get it that MMR's 30. Let's say it's $30,000, but the market only supports 27. That's the number I'm going off of, because I have no intentions of taking this car to the auction, because then I don't get to pay a salesperson. I don't get to pay a finance manager. And the most important thing of all of it is I don't get to gain a customer. I don't get to retain that customer. I don't get to see that customer every time they're in here for service or body shop or aftermarket or whatever it is. And it's unfortunate, because dealers are starting to become so concerned about that. But I think that's what stimulates the market that we've got right now, is you've got all of these guys that have paid this kind of money over the past 6-8 months. So they're not going to sell it. They're not going to take a $10,000 bath on a 2018 F-150. But I'm telling you right now, the numbers in the past 8 months, that's what you're going to have to do. And I get it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So hopefully your holding cost is pretty low. But you need to take the loss. If that's what your plan is to get out of that so you can get something fresh on your lot, I'm telling you, you take the loss and you move on.
I think what's crazy, too, is how many dealerships that we've spoken with.
Mm-hmm.
And we went into dealerships that we haven't acquired as accounts. One in particular, we go in, and they're still holding for these super high gross numbers that I tell them that there's no way of them seeing. He's coming over to take my whiskey right now. But they're holding for these huge numbers that aren't happening. And we're sitting with the GM of the dealership, and this was actually the second time that he had called to meet with the owner and himself. And he goes, hey, you know what? The owner's not willing to come out to even talk to you guys. And I'm like, so why is that? He's like, well, he just doesn't want to spend money right now. So the guy's like, can you guys come back next month? I told the guy, I go, we walk out of here today, we're not coming back. And the GM looks at us super confused. At this point, we have like 3 of their salespeople in with us also. It's 2 of us, 3 of their salespeople, the GM, everybody.
2 of their sales. They only had 2 sales.
Okay, two salespeople. So we're acquiring people from the dealership. They're coming in. The only person that won't speak to us is the owner. And the GM's like, why aren't you guys coming back next month? I go, because I've been watching your inventory. I know you floor plan your cars. And I know when that curtailment check comes out, which for people watching and listening, the curtailment check is when that company that you're pulling your loan through, that's flooring that car, everything like that, calls the note on it. They say, hey, you have to pay all this money. Whatever that car was, you got to pay that plus interest. So I've been watching their inventory, and I'm like, I know you're 60 days in. You've sold like 4 cars this month. You sold like 3 last month. I'm watching your inventory. You aren't going to be open in 60 days. I said 60 days. They were a little premature and closed at about 30.
35.
But
35.
I told them, I go, I'm not coming back because you guys won't be open. And when you watch those like dealers and things like that and watching how the numbers work, the numbers are pretty simple.
Yeah.
And I think that there was this influx of money that came into the car business that people are going to have to go back to the V-Auto method that I feel like you guys have been doing for the whole time.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, we're just going to sell influx at lower profits, but we're selling more than everyone else. We're still making the money that we're supposed to be making. And there's a lot of guys who are like, hey, we're making a lot more money. We get to sell half the cars. The quote we always get is half the problems.
Mm-hmm.
So they say we get...
It's not true, by the way.
Not true.
No.
And that is something I do disagree with the car business motto and things. Like, well, we can sell half the cars, make twice the money, a lot easier. You guys are still selling more cars, less money, and still pushing them all out. Am I correct on all that?
Yeah, but what do you do in 3 years when you need some retention? And you've got half the retention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's where dealerships survive also, is you were just taking on twice as many customers. And I've said this on previous podcasts. I hate the word customer. Like, absolutely hate it.
So do I.
I think they're friends.
I still to this day am trying to figure out something else better.
I think we should just
You know,
make up a new word.
I kind of call them clients, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a client.
It's not a client. It's not
If
a
you
customer.
do it the right way, it's 100% not a client,
Yeah.
man. I mean, they're people.
They're
you
people,
know what I mean?
They're friends.
Yeah.
They're people that you end up caring about for their best interest of everything that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's on a vehicle, if that's whatever they're doing, those people come in to get their oil changed and they're coming in your office.
Yeah.
Super excited to see you on what's going on in your life
Mm-hmm.
with your daughters and your wife and everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that is something that is just very cool and happening. That is one thing I do miss from the car business was all of that, the friends and things like that I acquired.
Yeah.
But I think that's also what you're doing is you're very much into taking care of each individual person. And I think that's why you've continued to acquire so much more business through this weird time of the car business.
Yeah. Well, and it gets tough, too, because like you're saying, you know, they become your friends, right? So friends are somebody you make time for. And that gets very difficult when you've got past clients from, you know, people that have bought cars from you or done whatever, and they come into your office and you've got 10 things going. You know, that now I've realized how hard that is, because I might have 6 sales guys waiting on answers from me, and, you know, somebody wants to come in and say hi, and I still have to be, you know, engaged in the conversation because I do care about them. But at the same time, sometimes it gets difficult, you know. So I think that's something you kind of got to juggle a little bit, because you might have somebody that just wants to come in your office and just hang out and bullshit for a while.
That's me when I show up there.
No, you know, that's what makes my job fun. However, in the position that I'm in, it also gets very difficult. You know, you have to be able to manage that. It sounds great. You know, it sounds cool. And it is absolutely great. You know, one of the first customers I sold, we went down to Outlaw Cigar the other day, and, you know, I made time for him outside of work because I feel so bad when he just comes by and getting his oil changed, exactly like what you're talking. Dan Rosum, He's one of my best friends, honest to God. And he'll come by and, hey, what are you doing today? But, you know, it's like I'm doing great and I'm on the move. You know what I mean? And I feel bad.
Yeah.
So it's nice to, you know, some Saturdays are tough, right? That's your big day in the business and you got to find time. So I've been trying to get a little bit better about doing stuff with those good clients and stuff outside of work. It's just unfortunate. I can't touch them all, you know, and that's really hard when you really care about their relationship and you care about their opinions and their values and what's going on in their family and their personal life and stuff. It becomes difficult because you just can't get to all of them once you get to that point, right? Because that's not your main job now. Now your main job is not only manage all your relationships, but you got to manage the other 25 sales guys and the CRC, the parts department, the body shop. Well, matter of fact, before we started the podcast, I had a body shop call. You know, that was on for a little while, and it becomes a lot. So you have to be able to kind of just, you know, you just kind of have to give a shit, really, and make it happen.
It's funny because you say, like, you have to give a shit about somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in the car business, what people don't understand is you might sell. Dre and I were very big on me meeting every customer that came into the finance office. He was finance manager. You may move 12 to 15 cars on a Saturday, meet 12 to 15 people on a Saturday, and that's just one Saturday. You do this all month, you may move 100, 120 vehicles in a month. You guys are moving a lot larger scale.
Yeah.
So then you meet all these people month over month. That number gets astronomical very fast.
Yeah.
Now we're on a scale like we have like 60 marketing accounts, and it's like, hey, call people all the time. Like,
John, what's going on?
Yeah.
it's so much easier to like manage on scale.
Yeah.
And I think coming from the car business helps us out a lot in the side of that management of accounts, management of people, and really taking care of people on that communication side.
I think everyone straight out of high school, college, something, they should have to go work into the car industry for a few years. I feel like we learned so much just from learning how to talk to people, everything like that, and learning silence isn't always awkward.
No.
And that's where
Should we try it out?
that, not on this, on a podcast, figured out it is awkward.
I know podcast silence is very weird. A lot of times we like stop and we're like,
Sometimes you're sitting in the car, listening to a podcast that goes quiet. You're like, is my
It's like,
connection
it's
working?
like 2 seconds, and you're like, is my phone, did it cut out?
Is it
So
lagging?
What's going on?
What do you mean, Dre, by silence is awkward? I'm interested to hear your
You know
response.
exactly.
I'm interested too.
Okay.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So you're in your selling phase of
Mm-hmm.
when you were selling cars. Dan was selling cars. Ricky actually was selling cars.
Hey, just to be clear, I still sell cars.
I will say I was talking about that earlier today
Yeah.
when you were coming on.
Mm-hmm.
That we were talking about watching your video, the saving the escapes life kind of deal for just like $370.
I was hoping you didn't catch the video I shared of the me singing. It was.
I was thinking about. I was trying to figure out how to put it on the screen and we could all watch it.
Yeah.
But
That was a
we might
discussion
have to
earlier
tag
today.
it. It might be in the video and might like stop
Sure enough.
and put that in there. But you saving that escapes life.
And I mean honestly, I mean no offense to ASPCA. Yeah.
Okay, so going back to my silent story. Okay, I thought we forgot about it. No, but like, you know, whenever you sell someone a car and you're sitting there and we were always taught on Foursquare, which I know things have changed, but we were taught just simple, and you say a number, you say the price of what their price is going to be, and then you don't talk. And we would sit there for, I think the longest I sat there was probably 7 or 8 minutes.
I think
Okay.
what he's talking about is on the. Most people come up with objections in their mind before it's ever someone else's objection.
Mm-hmm.
See, mine on that is people think in their own head before they're about to speak.
Yeah.
And I think the second you start trying to decipher a conversation in your head, you immediately stop listening to that individual.
Yeah.
You're assuming.
Yes. And you sit there and you're like, the conversation is going to go this way. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. And then they're going to buy. And then when you start doing that, nothing that individual's saying to you, you're relaying. You're just thinking about the next thing you're about to say to them.
Right. Because
So-
you're listening to respond.
Yep.
So that's also, I think, why the podcast has changed so much. Was in the beginning, I was like, I know exactly what they're going to say.
Yeah.
And then there was like, speak. I'm like,
Yeah.
That's not what I was planning on.
So, anyways, right?
I'm like, what was the next thing we're supposed to talk about? But it's so, the assuming deal is huge in just, I think, business in general. I think people,
Let's go.
we need the button for next week.
Yeah.
But it's, when you're taught into just assuming that a payment for a lot of times is, when we started into sales, we saw these high truck payments on $50,000-$60,000 trucks, and to us, I'm like, there's no way I can pay that. And you're like looking at them, and you go out and like present these numbers to people, and they're like, yeah, let's go. I'm like, how do they pay for that? Like, just not understanding.
Yeah.
I remember probably the first time I had a buyer come in that, come to find out, that totally weren't qualified to be looking at this new F-150 to begin with. But that's besides the point. I think managers, everything, they knew that. They just wanted me to get some experience. And I remember I go up to the tower, I get the Foursquare, I look at it, I'm like, what?
Ricky, where did you work at?
Lewis Ford and Hayes.
No shit.
Uh-huh.
All right. I
And
didn't
so
know that.
That's, I think, why we hit it off so good when we met.
Yeah.
Because I met him, and I'm like, dude, this dude's got, like, just finesse talking to people. He's like, I
No
actually sold
kidding.
cars for a while. I'm like, makes sense.
Yeah, anybody that sold cars is like, hey, brother.
Welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that. Anyways,
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, go on.
But yeah,
I'm sorry.
it was like, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my goodness. I was already like defeated in my own head. I was like, there's no way they can't pay that. I couldn't pay half that. There's no way. And then I go out there and come to find out they just couldn't finance anything. So that was besides the point.
And they probably signed it right out the gate. They're like, yeah, I'll do that if you can get it for
oh,
me.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, let's
do-
submit it to the bank.
Yeah.
Oh, bank said no.
Yeah. Oh.
You know,
Oh,
that
yeah.
brings up a good point, though, really, Ricky, because those customers like that, when you treat them with the respect to show them something that you think that they can't afford, and then come to find out whether they can or can't, and they, in your instance, they couldn't afford it, I'll bet you still know who those people were.
Yeah. And
this day.
also
You
the
know
other
their
thing-
names, you know everything about them because you built a relationship with them to get them to that point. But once you have them to that point, it's so much easier to scale them back because you're the only dealership, you're probably the only salesperson that they went to that gave a shit enough to sell them and
Probably
build,
the only person who even gave him numbers.
right, to build value and to give them the time of day to look at whatever it was you were trying to sell them there at Hayes, right? My best clients to this day were customers that started out just like that. 100%. They couldn't afford shit, right? They couldn't afford to finance a pack of bubble gum, as they used to say back in
Yeah.
the day, which I think is stupid, right? But
Yeah.
whatever. That's just the old terminology. But man, that's a salesperson. You know what I mean? That's someone that truly gives a shit. Is, hey, I get it, right? You can't afford this one, and I'm gonna do this, and here's why I'm gonna do it, right?
Right.
Let me show you this escape, and you know, here's the things that the escape's going to accomplish here, right? You said you got a new job, you've got to get back and forth to, you've got 2 kids, and you've got a dog, right? This is going to accomplish all of those things. And maybe this isn't your exact scenario, so let's not put me on some high horse. But if you do that kind of stuff and you show that person, then you tell them, hey, in 18 months, you make this Ford payment with Ford Motor Credit for the next 18 months and you don't miss a beat, right? Come back in and see me, and I'm going to get you into something nicer. I know you want a truck because you want to go do this and you want to go do that, but those are all wants, right? You need to do these things right now. Those people listen to you.
Oh, definitely.
But if you would have just told them, oh, you can't finance this, so let me show you this escape, which is what that same person ended up buying anyways.
Sure.
But when you started out like that, they don't care because you don't respect them, right? So they're going to end up going somewhere and getting into a bad situation with a super high interest rate, and you sell them an escape. You downgrade them from that F-150 to an escape, and you sell them and you build value in it, they come back to you every single time because you actually give one shit about the person.
Yep.
You know, so that's actually a cool story to me because all of my best clients, every single one of them started out in a different 11 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got so many different customers that started out in the worst situations, the worst of the worst, and they can literally come into that dealership and buy whatever they want.
But I think that just goes back to educating an individual because no one has ever taught finance in this scale in school. So you sit there and you get out of school and you can go get student loans. You can do all this stuff, but when you go buy a car, buy a house, stuff like that, no one teaches you that part. So people come in, they're like, yeah, I got credit cards and yeah, I've maxed them all out. It's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
And they're like, why? I'll pay it off. I pay that $35 payment. I'm like, yeah, but you're over X amount of usage. I'm like, that's not good on a credit report. I'm like, it's a game. You just got to play the game correctly.
Yeah.
And when you're going into that, you sit there, you educate those people. Now you change their lives. Now that they know how to use their credit, in that 12 to 18 months after they've paid on that auto, they can then start establishing, building up, and then, like you said, you have those people that come in, they can buy whatever they want in that lot because you help them change their lives that day they came into that dealership.
Mm-hmm.
See, a lot of times we finessed ourselves out of our own clients. I use clients instead of customers on that one because that was more your word.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we would finesse ourselves out of our own clients because we'd have somebody come in that we'd really start going over their credit. And Dre, myself, our dad is very, very good with credit and understanding how credit works and establishing credit. And he did it for us. And it made it to where we could go buy whatever we want right out of college. And it was like we were in a much different boat than everyone else, but also coming from the car business, watching credit reports, doing all this stuff. And then you would have these people come in, we're like, hey, you need to pay this credit card down to this. Don't pay it off. You need to pay on this vehicle for over 12 months. You need to do this, cover these medical bills. These ones are over X amount of time. Don't mess with them. They're about to drop off. Don't even wake up that skeleton in the closet. So we'd like work all these like credit people. Then all of a sudden we would take somebody that's a 500 and they'd be coming in to buy a car 2 years from that point, and they'd be like a 780, and they're like, well, I'm also looking at a brand new car down the road at Gary Crossley Ford. And I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, it's really hard for me to compete against new. Like, it's just not new. Like,
It's nice.
it's nice.
It's not new.
Do you remember who got your credit up? That was us. But it
Yeah.
became where we were directly competing against each other.
Mm-hmm.
And
Those scenarios do suck, right? But we did a good job of it.
yeah, and it's like you want to help someone out, you want to do all those things, and they were very, very, very loyal in the aspect of the used space.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing we never really got upset about was when people went to buy new.
Right.
That's out of a space we can't.
Yeah, you can't really.
We're not. That was out of our control.
But if you're going up there, ask for Todd.
Yeah.
This is your dude.
Real good dude. Bald guy sits in the corner of us. A few people
Yeah.
that hate him, but most people like him.
I'd say
Yeah.
4%.
It's not a high percent, but it's a percent.
Yeah. Well, and that's a cool thing too, because what you just said kind of represents what kind of people you are, and the reason what I'm saying is most guys would have just kept pushing and pushing and pushing to sell the used car, but you saw the advantage for the customer, and you said, hey, you know what, the new car's a better deal for you, so go see Todd. And that's very, very rare in the business because most people just want to sell somebody something. And I feel like we operate a very similar way. My brother was in there today, and he's looking at different trucks and stuff like that for a job that he's getting ready to take, and within the company he's with now. And he's like, well, the 1500s get a little bit better fuel mileage on their V8s than your Ford does. And I was like, I just looked him in the eyes like, hey, man, if that's what makes more sense for you, go buy it. But here's why I don't think it makes sense. But if you think it makes more sense, there's absolutely zero. I'm not going to be upset at all. You can park that thing in my garage anytime you want to. I don't
It's
care.
just going to be close. You're going to have room right through the garage.
Yeah. Yeah. There might be a banana in your tailpipe, but park it in the garage, man.
Put a shove a potato in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
second date doesn't start. Weirdest
Mhm.
thing.
Right.
So, Todd, obviously we talked about like kind of the content creation side of things, and that's something that we handle. But what type of marketing strategies have you used? What have you seen? And you don't have to name everything, but what have you seen that's had a really good return? And maybe what are some of the things that you've tried that you were like, oh, well, that didn't work at all?
It's another long one.
No pressure.
Yeah. Well, so marketing's very interesting, right? As you obviously know.
It's a very wide scope.
Yeah, you guys run a marketing company, so, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know. But I think what a lot of dealers get hung up on is what we were talking about earlier. They would just want to be seen. And sometimes the easiest way to be seen is to spend $4,000 or $5,000 a month with one of the big box names like Car Gurus or Cars.com, Auto Trader. All of these. Carfax is a big one. So they think, all right, well, I want to be seen. Mm-hmm. Right? That's marketing, is being seen. Well, the problem with that is you have all of these other different companies that want to be seen as well. And so it basically comes down to whoever's willing to pay the most will be seen the most. And that's not a space that I want to participate in. So if I have, I don't, because I don't want to name drop, right? Because I want to respect everyone. I really do. But if you have someone come in and they say, hey, it's $3,500 a month, you can get up to 200 cars of your inventory put on our site. All right, great. What's that look like? Well, here's your data, here's your analytics, here's how many shoppers you're going to touch and all that stuff. I'm like, no, I understand that, but what's it going to actually look like? Like if I'm the customer, what do I see? And so for $3,000 a month, you're going to be on page 2. All right. Well, I'm a buyer of different things, cars. If I'm gonna buy a car, it's gonna be from Crossley, right? So, I can't really empathize with that. But if I want to be seen, like let's just say I just bought my daughters a really nice trampoline. I'd bought them a Dodge D100, and that was gonna be their project truck. We were gonna fix it up and sell it. Well, I was able to make some money on it just selling it like it's set. So I said, hey, I'm gonna buy you girls a really good trampoline that'll last a long time. Well, I went to the best name. I went shop for trampolines, found the one that had the best reviews, wasn't the cheapest one. It was, a matter of fact, it's the most expensive one I could find. But it had really good reviews, says it's going to last a while, but it was on the first page, so I bought it, right? If that would have been a car, I wouldn't have went to the second page. There in full transparency, there might have been a better trampoline on page 2, but I didn't find out.
Has anyone ever clicked on page 2 on Google?
Well, probably not.
But that's
the thing with me is with these vendors and wanting to be known, and the when you're doing your marketing is, well, how do I get up on the first page? Well, that's $5,400 a month. Okay, well, how do I get my banner to go across the top where it says Gary Crossley Ford, right? Okay, well, that's $6,300 a month. Okay, well, how do I calculate payments? Okay, well, that's $7,000 a month. And
they nickel and dime your ass.
They just
they
keep going. The thing that Dane or Dre won, I think it was Dane. You touched on all of these shoppers, right? So you had 35% right, 1 out of 10, or 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10 maybe. Of the customers coming to the dealership or on cars.com, Auto Trader, and all this different shit, right? It doesn't matter to me because I'm not going to pay you $3,000 a month to be on page 2, and I'm definitely not paying you $6,500 a month to be on page 1. But here's the thing, man, and here's what most vendors fuck up on, and excuse my language, but a lot of the times they come in at, well, that's just, what are you running per copy right now? Well, if I'm running $4,000 a copy, let's just say, right?
Oh, I can sell you 2 cars.
Which is a decent number, right? Well, and they're $8,000 a month to sign on with. They're like, well, that's just 2 car deals, Todd. Well, absolutely not. It is not 2 car deals. That is not 2 car deals.
They don't understand all the expense that comes with it.
Because I've got to pay a salesperson. Let's just start real simple, right? I got to pay a salesperson commission. And guess what? I absolutely don't pay my guys per car or per hour or whatever it is, because then there's no guarantee that salesperson is going to give you the experience that you deserve by me paying them $3,000 a month or $5,000 a month or whatever it is, because then they're just sitting there as a robot and they're just moving through this and they're not building a relationship. So my customer retention turns to shit. And so I don't know. I'm getting off on a tangent because these third-party vendors just piss me off all the time, every single day, day in and day out, because they don't give 2 shits besides meeting their sales quota. And it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit, because not from a dealer standpoint of view, but from a consumer standpoint of view, if I really give 2 shits about my customer, the last thing that I'm going to do is spend $5,000, $6,000 with you. I could take that $5,000 or $6,000 and put together customer care packages that have like Arctic, you know what I'm talking about, the little tumblers and shit like that, or bourbon or hats or apparel or whatever it is. And I think that's also a waste of time, but it's a hell of a lot better spend than spending $6,000 on taking a chance on one of your $300,000 views on page 2.
But
get out of my office.
It's funny because we've had very, very, very large scale dealers come to us that want us to take on very large scale across like big groups. And by groups, we mean dealerships that have multiple rooftops. And with them, a large portion of them are paying for this pay-per-click via Google right now, which I think is the biggest fucking hosing on the planet right now. That we have went into dealerships to spend $100,000+ a month on it. And I'm like, what are you guys seeing from it? Top level, they know somebody, so they're going to pay for it. GMs across all dealership levels, which we've acquired and like met, talked to, like, yeah, we see no return. No return on it. So I'm like, you're telling me you're pissing away $100,000 a month. That's $1.2 million a year. Million. On pay-per-click with Google.
I will buy 12 cars from them a year for 12.
Well, and you know what I think?
You
You
know
know
I
what?
would literally tell somebody, like, I'll buy 12 vehicles and I'll pay cash for them, and I will give you a check for half of it.
I would even finance them. I'll finance them. Be like, hey,
Like, that just doesn't even
Finance is 6 months.
That doesn't even make sense to me. But the Google platform has turned into a bid platform.
Yeah.
That it's a bidding to play. Like, we've messed with Google like, we do Google ads. I don't advise it. But if people really want to do it, I'm like, hey, we'll do them.
Yeah.
When they don't work out, let's move that money over to social, because right now social is not a bid platform.
Yeah.
You can actually, this is what it's going to cost. This is what we're going to get you. Google, you want to play, and I'm going to say I'm going to bid, I don't know what, 50 cents a click.
Yeah.
You sit down the road and you're like, I'm going to do 60 cents a click. Guy down the road's like, I'm going to do $1 a click. The guy getting $1 a click, he's paying $100,000 a month to try to get all these clicks, and Google's actually returning him nothing because he's getting a bunch of bots clicking on his shit right now.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think the whole marketing space right now is a little out of whack and kind of weird.
Well, I
Like-
think the marketing space, like you're talking, it's kind of horseshit.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, it really is. And you guys are obviously the exception to the rule because you're so much different than everybody else. But
I don't like to try to say that we're like 100% different than everyone else out there.
but you are, in
We
my
are-
opinion.
We are in the fact of what we are doing is so different than you have content companies out there that handle content. There's content companies out there that are phenomenal at what they do. Not going to discredit them at all. You have social ad companies out there that are phenomenal at what they do. You have SEO companies out there phenomenal at what they do. You have website companies out there that are phenomenal at what they do. We do it all under one roof.
Mm-hmm.
That we can come, film your vehicles, we can build everything, we can do all the graphic design for everything, we do all the photography, everything A to Z, and you don't have to worry about any of it.
So then we can take that video that content person did and say you get that great video, and then you're using a marketing company that doesn't know how to market correctly. So you have a fantastic video no one's seeing. So why don't we get a fantastic video everyone sees on all platforms, all the way across the board?
So it's just I'm not going to ever, I will never badmouth another marketing company. I'll never badmouth somebody on what they're doing. Somebody could be really good at their space. The reason we got into this was because we want to handle A to Z and make it easier for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like when we come in and we do something for you, the extent of what we do for you is grabbing keys, I feel like.
Yeah.
And we need you to do that faster.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Dane can tell you every time he shows up, I'm like, hold on just a second. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Hey, we had an appointment, man.
Yeah.
It's like, I know we
somebody's
did.
actually here to buy that shit.
Yeah. So let me sell it real quick, and then you go photo it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The customer's going to be in the car with you, so
Yeah.
It'll totally be cool though. Just work them into the video somehow.
Yeah.
It'll all work
Well, it's
out.
just crazy though, because we've had one of those already. You know.
Yeah.
The Bronco.
I don't think that's a bad thing, but
No,
I
it's a
think
great
that's
thing.
very much in the aspect of your most valuable thing that you have is the product that you have. And the product that we have that is so valuable is content,
Yeah.
the video, the photography, everything that we have. And that's why I'm very firm on when we meet with people Or do you post this to all your social platforms? Like 100%.
Mm-hmm.
We use this for our own marketing plus your marketing, which the great thing is when you get our marketing, you get our whole spectrum of people that we reach also.
Yeah.
So that's just one of those things that I think it comes kind of full circle back into the marketing strategy of everything. And I feel like we went just full speed tangent on somewhere way over there.
Yeah, we went on a tangent at all.
I feel like that's how it works, though, you know?
Yeah.
That's how the podcast works.
Yeah, that's the point of podcasts.
Yeah. We don't really know where they're going to go, but they go somewhere.
Yeah. At least we're not talking about alpaca or,
Yeah.
you know, llamas or something like that has
Like
nothing
Dre's
to
a
do with car
huge
business.
fan of llamas. Like if we start that, that's going to be a different podcast. It's Dre's podcast on llamas.
I don't know anything about llamas.
Dane,
I know a lot of random facts. That's none of them.
You should definitely study those, and then we can start a
Next-
side podcast.
Next podcast.
You know, I bought my parents a llama for Christmas, and it had a llama, and then it died. So they still have a
Oh.
llama if you ever want to get to know a llama.
Your parents really have a llama.
Yeah, Clementine. It's off of.
That's what you bought your parents for Christmas.
I bought them a llama for Christmas, and I'm loading this old girl in the trailer. Her name was Clarice.
Old girl.
And I'm loading her in the trailer, and the guy's telling me all about it. And he's like, well, you know, she's, llamas, that if they have a baby, they just drop it and go. They're not like a cow. You know, I was raised on a farm, so cattle. And they kind of take care of their baby and tend to it, lick it off and clean it and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, I said, we don't plan on, I said, man, we don't plan on breeding her at all. He's like, well,
It's pregnant.
he said, no, more or less. He's like, well, she's been exposed for 2 months. And I'm like, all right, what's that mean? And he's like, well, she was with a male for 2 months. I'm like, was she in heat? Yeah. I'm like, so she's pregnant. Well, there's, a pretty decent chance. I'm like, well, okay, here we go. So I take this.
I'm going to start using it with people. I'm like, you
Yeah.
were exposed to Sarah for 2
Yeah.
months. Now you have 2 daughters.
Yeah. No kidding. I was exposed just long enough to make life perfect. You know what I mean? I couldn't. God, I love my life. But
I bet your
anyways.
parents were so excited.
So I get home. Well, my dad was not, but my mom, she's kind of cool, and she'd always let me have a snake and shit when I was a kid, but I never did get one because Dad's like, absolutely not. But so I show up with this llama. I'm like, well, hell, I'm old enough now. He can't tell me no. If I show up with the damn thing, he's not going to tell me to take it back to the guy because I lived in town at the time. And
There's no return policy,
Yeah,
Dad.
zero.
It's pregnant.
So Mom walks out
Not
the
from
garage, look at
Walmart.
her present, and I kind of come out in front of her, and this llama's pinned up between the wall and Mom's Ford Fusion. Just denting the shit out of the side, kicking it and everything else. And I'm like, oh boy. And thankfully, my dad doesn't listen to podcasts because they'd know where those dents come
Was
from.
that in the garage?
But yes.
I would have shut the garage and been like,
I'm gonna
Mom,
make
there's
sure
a
I
llama
send this
I
in
did.
the
I come
garage.
out ahead of time, and I grabbed the llama, and I yanked it around the side. And I'm like, oh, I felt like a teenager again. I'm like, I don't want Dad to find out about this shit. And, it's weird that side of the Fusion was super clean, from all the fur and stuff. Had a few dents, but no big deal. So anyways, I was like, and she's
I'm going to
pregnant.
send this podcast to them just so you know.
Yeah.
I'm
well,
going to track down their numbers. I'm going to be like, hey, all I want you guys to do is listen to this.
hey,
on
I got
Spotify.
his number, man. He'd probably love it. But anyways, Dad calls me about 2 months later. He's like, yeah, son. Silence. I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I'm looking at something you're never going to believe it. I'm like, all right. He likes to build up suspense. And I was like, all right. I was like, what is it? He's like, you got to guess. I'm like, man, you got a tractor that's pushing 2,000 horse. That's what Dad's into. He's like, nope, I'm out here in the barn. I'm like, all right, you got some new barn kittens? Nope. Little white thing, about 25 pounds. I'm like, holy shit, she had a baby.
And it's not
like,
a cow.
He's like, yeah. So Hadley was real into Sheriff Callie at the time. It was one of her favorite books. And the horse in Sheriff Callie was Clementine. So now they got Clementine that runs out there with all their cattle and stuff. It's kind of funny. It's a white thing, kind of cool.
Didn't he go with Tina?
Like
Off Napoleon Dynamite?
if Clarice, the mom of Clementine, wouldn't already had a name, it's definitely going to be Tina, eat some ham and stuff. But, so anyways, if you do want to study up on llamas, we got that covered.
So we're definitely.
Dane actually said he wants to get a new Facebook profile picture of a llama in him.
Yeah.
I
So
got it.
we're gonna have to do a lot of study on llamas. I feel like the car business we have kind of dialed in. I'd say 24%.
That's not a very good percentage.
very.
But it's a percent.
It's a percent.
But it's a percent. Yeah. Sure
It's
why not?
all about statistics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But once again, very much enjoyed you coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Once again, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Glad
Thank
we
you.
learned about llamas tonight.
Yep, llamas. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like we've learned a lot in
Yeah.
a very short period
I hope
of time.
you have. I don't feel like I've really done anything for you, but I feel like I've sat here on the couch and drink some really exceptional bourbon.
That's what we're
But,
here to really do.
Yeah. So, I mean, I
And-
guess, you know what, if somebody clicks on it and likes it and listens to it, whatever. But you guys are great, and, what you've done for our business and what you've done for me personally, Dane, I'm a firm believer in attitude is atmosphere. And, anytime I talk to anyone about the car business, we were talking about vendors, good and bad and indifferent. You got to listen to them. So, when you talk to about the vendor or about the GM that wouldn't come down and talk to you, that guy's wasn't or isn't, or maybe hopefully he's pulling himself out of that hole. But, no matter who comes into our dealership to talk to me, I'm going to talk to him because, again, attitude is atmosphere. And I feel like anybody can bring that up, whether they're good at what they do or bad at what they do. Thankfully, I get to network with you guys, and
100%.
you guys are, not only are you positive spirits in my business, but you do a really, really good job at what you do, and you make sure I'm satisfied before you send me an invoice.
I think that's my biggest deal. All
And
the time. I'm like, are you happy with
Yeah.
everything? Are you all good? He's like, bro, send me an
He's
invoice. I'm
hovering
like,
over the send button. He's like,
Yeah.
you good?
Yeah.
You good?
He's like,
good?
He's
Click.
like, and
Right.
we're very big on hand delivering a lot of invoices.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, send that to me. I'm like, bro, we filmed this yesterday. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't have anything set. I'm like,
Well,
he's like, just send it over. I'm like, I'll be on next Friday.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to make sure you're cool with everything.
and I know this podcast is for you to have me here as your guest, but I can't express to all of you, within Moss Marketing Group, how much you mean to me personally. But not only that, to our business, and Dane Dre, we go way back, and
Just a few years.
and I can honestly say that because I believe so much in that phrase, attitude is atmosphere, I would not be where I'm at today, and I mean that wholeheartedly without you two, and without your family, your dad included. You guys have done a lot for me, and I
Thank you
really
very
appreciate
much.
that.
Thank you.
And what you're doing now, I know that we're going to look back at this in 10 years and be like, holy shit, we were sitting on the couch doing a podcast 10 years ago.
We're going to
'cause-
be sitting on our yachts named Doge.
yeah, you guys are going places, and I can't think of a better group of people to go places that deserve it, because you truly give a shit. And I it means more to me tonight to be here than it probably does to you.
It means
because
a lot
you're
for you
good
being
people.
here because
No,
it's 100% on how people know one another.
mm-hmm.
And we've been very selective on who comes on the podcast. And I can say 100% every single person that I have spoke with about being on here, we genuinely want them on here 200%.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, once again, we're very thankful for you being here. I think you bring a lot of knowledge to the space. You've done very well in your space. We want people to learn and take a lot from what they are viewing on this week over week.
Yeah,
And it is going to grow to something much bigger than what we know.
yeah, it will.
But it's because people like you come on.
Thank you.
It's not because of what we're bringing every week, but it's because what the person that sits there every single week is going to bring.
Yeah,
So I think that's a lot of times, I don't know, that you are the most important person sitting on this couch week over week.
mm-hmm.
And once
We're,
again,
we're just figures here.
That's
Yeah.
good. Well, and
we're
that's
just
the cool thing.
asking a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
I don't even know really, we're not really good at actually asking them, but we try.
That's
So-
all right. You know what? And, anybody that wants help or just wants to freaking, throw some ideas off of each other, that's what we're here for.
Yep.
I don't have any cards to hide. If we can make each other better, we just will make each other better. And you guys make me better. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
me.
so much.
Yeah.
Thanks
So-
for being on.
You know,
Yeah.
the crazy thing is, this podcast is going to be very weird because we're 6 in? This is number 7.
Yeah.
Number
All right?
7.
Number 7. So it's going to be really weird because normally I get this like solid exit that I've probably the only thing I've really got like down to a key is my like key Ricky spot, but this week it's going to be
Look
different.
who's over there.
So no. So normally, thank you, Todd, for being here. Ricky, star finale on his first podcast, Dre. But guess what?
I'm just here.
Dre's
This
just
was
here.
the M3 podcast, so Key Lauren.
Thanks for listening to the M3 Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Want to learn more? Check us out on Instagram at Moss Marketing Group, on Facebook at Moss Marketing 58, or on our website at mossmarketinggroup.com.